So with that, I'll bring the meeting to order. And Madam Clerk, would you mind reading the roll call?
Commissioner Cerna?
Here.
Peters? Hume?
Here.
Greenwood?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, great. With that, let's need to pledge. Supervisor Peters, would you mind leading us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Make sure my mic is on, and it is. Okay, with that, I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting of LAFCO is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. The meeting is also webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Saturday, September 9th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. This meeting is also closed captioned. We ask that you please turn off any cell phones or noise-making devices. Speaker slips are located at the table at the back and on the podium, on the speaker podium. Please fill them out and hand them to the clerk so we can recognize you. And with that, we'll go ahead and go to the meeting. Our first item of business is the consent calendar, and we have three items there. Approve the minutes of the August 2nd meeting, claims dated through August 31st, the monthly budget report, and the legislation status report.
Consent.
I have a motion move to approve. Second, I have a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to business items. We received a letter here shortly, and our executive officer sent us a copy of that from the local Sacramento County Grand Jury. Don, would you like to speak to that a little bit?
Certainly. Certainly, I appreciate the opportunity. We did receive from the 2017 Sacramento County Grand Jury.
Is your microphone on?
You have to really lean into it, Don.
Yeah.
There you go. We received a copy of the grand jury report. We had met with the grand jury one time to discuss kind of a LAFCO 101. What do we do? What kind of resources do we have? There was a really strong focus on the part of the group, the grand jury group, regarding municipal service reviews, and in particular, municipal service reviews of water service providers. Understandably, with the recent climate of droughts and a whole different way of looking at water. So we thought we were able to get some good information to share with them. And as a result of their further investigation, if you will, spending time with on our website, which was, as we found out, not completely functioning with the search engine, so that made it problematic to find municipal service review information. So we've taken some good points from their report, and are taking some measures. We've outlined the measures to update and refresh our municipal service review process. But I think one of the things we want to be really clear about is that your commission is highly engaged in the municipal service review. We have a very effective guidelines, set of questionnaires that we share with the affected districts. We view, at the direction of your commission, the process as being highly collaborative. We want to understand the work that the districts have put into play, the criteria that they have to meet for state and local regulations, be they park recreation standards or fire standards or water standards. So I think that's reflected in the work that we bring before your commission. Just as a reminder, we bring the commission a draft after we've worked with the affected agencies. We bring the draft to your commission for your consideration, and at your direction we then post it on our website for 30 to 45 days for public review, peer review, other agencies, and receive their comments and modify the document through dialogue again with the primary agency. So that way the document is reflective of the current setting. It's reflective of the capacities of the service provider, and it's also quite often there's the opportunity for public review and comment. I think that's one of the things we want to make clear in our response to this, and that, and coupled with the order of magnitude of the number of districts we have covered. And as some of y'all are aware, the world of water service provision is a little bit different. You have entities, independent special districts that are subject to LAFCO oversight, municipal service review. You have investor-owned water companies that are not subject to LAFCO overview, and you also have mutual water companies which are not subject to our overview. So the good news in Sacramento County, you have several, because of the nature of being at the confluence of the two large rivers in the state, you have a very active water community, and LAFCO remains engaged in those discussions with, be it the Water Forum or the groundwater agencies or the other regional entities. So I think we're covering our bases on that issue. We do the same thing with meeting with the various South County Council of Fire Chiefs, so we can make that bridge between the full-time firefighter services and the volunteer services and make sure that folks are talking with one another. We were able to work with the county to get as a result of our rural fire district analysis with MSRs, we were able to really kind of bring a bright light to the need for a standardized 911 communication system. So that's in place now. That was not in place before we were doing the MSR. So I think it's important that we look at and we continue to implement the direction of your commission, that we look at municipal service reviews as tools to work with the commissions to enhance public service. So I think we have the letter attached that I worked on with Commission Counsel Nancy Miller, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have, but I just kind of want to make those points at the outset.
Yeah. Council Nancy, would you like to address that in any way too? Anything that you got out of the letter and also our response?
Well, there were 8 recommendations by the grand jury, and we did not concur with 6 of them. So I just want you to be sure that you see that, and that had to do with the fact that they weren't able to see all the MSRs that had been done, so a lot of their comments had to do with things that weren't actually true. So for that reason, we don't concur in many of their recommendations. They also had a recommendation about to help us, we should get outside experts. We don't concur with that. And these are all things that you could disagree with, of course, and say, no, we want to explore that more, but Don and I don't believe that's the case. At the very end, there are a few that you might want to, we don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. One was whether or not we should have an annual work plan, and we said we would agree with that and we would implement that. So annually you could see that there was a work plan. We thought that that was a legitimate recommendation. And we are going to, what was the other one, Dawn, in terms of working with the budget to just make it clear how we are going to be addressing MSRs. We take the position that we don't do MSRs and we don't use the budget for MSRs until we basically have a sphere of influence come up, and then we look at it unless there's a service issue. We don't automatically do an update every 5 years, and I don't believe one is required. It's just as necessary. So when we have service issues, we will do an MSR. When we have a sphere, we will do an MSR. But we don't automatically every 5 years go back and ask everyone for a lot of information and updates and those kinds of things. And that's in the letter as well, that we will continue to do the practice that we have. So the point tonight is we're asking you to approve the letter so that Don and I can sign it and send it back.
Okay, great. Yes, Commissioner Serna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go ahead and move the item, but I guess on the suggestion that we have a work plan, I guess I'd like to understand whether or not any other LAFCOs in the state of California do that. And the reason I ask that question is because unlike so many other agencies that some of us are engaged with, this is the one that is the most responsive to kind of external stimulus, if you will, by design, because we need the subject matter to kind of come to us by way of action by other special districts, municipalities. And so I'm just wondering, does it make sense to come up with a work plan, on an annual basis when in any given year, at the beginning of that year, whether it's fiscal or calendar, we don't necessarily know, with a huge amount of certainty what is going to be on the horizon. We might get, in the course of that year, surprised by something that we didn't know at the commencement of trying to complete a work plan. So I'm just thinking out loud that I'm not sure is terribly helpful for LAFCO.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We used to do them. We stopped doing them because you really couldn't anticipate all the time, and it took time to do them, and they got changed anyway.
Yeah.
So that's really up to you. We don't mind. Don doesn't mind doing one every year.
I could see us, like the true substance of the work plan would be to develop the work plan.
Right.
So.
And I think we're really one of the things that we've always followed the direction of the commission is projects be project oriented and provide that level of service. So typically, if a project's going to entail a change in boundaries, annexations, or other such, there's generally a sphere of influence that's affiliated with that, and that's the trigger for us to update the municipal service review process.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, Don, didn't we used to occasionally get something in the back of our binders that was what you were working on?
Right.
Correct. And I think that's maybe
What did you call it?
it was. We did use the term work plan.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And that was helpful in the sense that you could kind of have a little bit of a roadmap of where we've been, what kind of projects have we been through in the last year, and then what was near term and what we anticipate. That's one of the things I think we gave you all with the final budget, a little bit of what we anticipate to be some projects coming forward. They are reliant on externals. They're reliant on the landowners. They're reliant on the local government land use decision makers or special district boards. So we have them, and we work very closely with staff of these agencies, so we can kind of tailor them up to be ready when the application, or when there is time for an application. So we save some time on the front end doing that, but whether that's, we're happy to memorialize that in a monthly write-up for you.
Commissioner Hume?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Don, I'm glad to hear that primarily this was a computer problem and not necessarily a true work plan problem. One of the findings references the adequacy of the MSRs that we complete. Do you disagree with that statement, or do you know what's causing them to make that allegation?
Well, yes, I think as Nancy pointed out, we do disagree. And one of the reasons why is and the information is available, and I do accept, wearing my hat as the webmaster, I should have been more on top of the search options. But we rely on considerable special studies that are done by, I'll use the water districts as an example, the Urban Water Management Plan, or other works that are reviewed by expertise at the state or regional level. And we feel comfortable relying on that level of expertise. We refer to those special studies under the cover of the Municipal Service Review, and those are also posted on our website. So as a whole, you're getting a very technical study that we don't want to impose a cost burden on resources to the special districts particularly, especially if the work's already been done. Same thing if they're going through an annual or biannual audit, we just ask that they include that with their submittal to us, their budget, the ongoing management that is the responsibility of their governing boards to do. So I think I can understand where some folks on the grand jury may have misunderstood the level of detail that our documents have, and I think that by the time we get the end of the calendar year, I think we're going to have a lot more detail on one common location on the site.
Good.
I'll second the motion. Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. And then I think the most compelling case against their findings with respect to what you said, that the information was there, it just wasn't easily available, is the Table A that lists how many MSRs are complete and or in progress. All of them are complete and or in progress. But I just want to call out on a couple of them. Ileton and the City of Citrus Heights references C Note 2 and Note 3 respectively, and under the notes it's Note 1 and Note 2. So if you
That's
make
correct.
that change
Thank you
before
for
we
that.
put that
Yeah.
along.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Good catch.
Okay, I think any other comments or no questions? Okay. I think I had a motion and a second. Did I hear that right? Okay. No further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sorry, I'm still not used to using the screen. Someday I'll learn to do that. So a motion approved.
Thank you.
Move on to, we had a couple of public hearing items. Actually, one is on the City of Folsom sphere of influence, item number 6. Don, can you speak to that a little bit?
Certainly. Just real quickly, just by way of background, your commission entered into, or authorized the executive officer to enter into a memorandum of an understanding with the City of Folsom. They have a proposal wherein they want to do a concurrent or a sphere of influence amendment, and then take that back for their land use considerations, pre-zoning, design review, to approve a use, a municipal use, which would be for a new corporation yard. Right now, they're kind of tucked in down by the American River and Old Town, and then they have some satellite sites for storing materials. So they'd like to kind of put all that in one location, get some greater efficiencies from doing that. We're going to go through it. Your commission remains in charge of the sphere process. Your discretion remains in of your ability to disapprove, modify and approve, or approve the project. So what we've done with that MOU is we went out to a request for proposals for environmental analysis. We had 3 good responses, and we sat down and LAFCO staff with the City of Folsom staff and representatives of the landowners group went through those processes, ranked them, and we've arrived at a recommendation that we move ahead with a contract with Ascent Environmental. All costs for this and sequence analysis, all costs, staff costs, are going to be borne by the City of Folsom and their landowners group. So we're going to just be providing the expertise and guidance getting through the process here. So just wanted to, this was more of an information item for the commission to let you know that we are taking the steps that we're directed to do so with the MOU, and we have now hit, this is a pretty significant benchmark, getting the consultant on board.
I noticed also in the discussion items that they recommend that a single EIR be prepared jointly by the City of Folsom and the Sacramento LAFCO.
Right, that's the cost and resource efficiency that way.
Makes a lot of sense.
We're getting their expertise input into the land use assumptions for the sphere of influence, and we're also able to guide the process for the LAFCO concerns. Hopefully, keep the cost down in so doing.
Okay, great. Any questions from any of the commissioners, or?
Is this an
comments?
Action item or just an update?
It's not just an update, yeah. Okay, move on to item number 2 on the business items, and that is regarding the Camera Highway 99 Wackman Ranch proposed sphere of influence.
This is an item that's been before your commission before. We did in February release an draft environmental impact report. In the time since we've been working on the project, some new information introduced itself relative to some water supply planning issues, some other infrastructure planning issues that really could have some good benefit to the public to be more aware of how those pieces fill in. Also, the South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Plan found its way onto the street after quite some time, about 20-plus years. So we wanted to be able to reflect that, any changes from the regulatory setting that, as a result of that going in. It's just at public review draft right now in the Federal Register. And then also, the City of Elk Grove did issue a notice of preparation for their general plan update. So they're preparing their own SEQA analysis of that, so that's again kind of a refresh of some more information for the public to consider in the context of this EIR. So we have recirculated the EIR. It's open for public review and comment through this coming Monday, September 11th. We do have a very brief PowerPoint from Matthew, who's with AECOM, and I think that would be a good way to lay out the dynamics of the project.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the
Commission, the Commissioners. I'm Matthew Gerken from AECOM. I have a very, very short presentation, I promise, that I understand is preloaded on the screen, although I'm not currently seeing it.
Cable, can we have the PowerPoint, please? Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. So as you may recall, this is a landowner initiated application to change the sphere for the city of Elk Grove's Sacramento Area Sewer District and the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District for about 1,200 acres, as you see in this exhibit here, south of the city of Elk Grove's southeast policy, west of Highway 99, and currently outside Sacramento County's urban services boundary. But as I said, the proposal is to change not anything about county, but city of Elk Grove sphere. The PowerPoint is operating by itself now. I'll try to deal with that. Sorry about that. As Don mentioned, draft EIR went out looking at the impacts of this sphere change in February. And then we heard about the South Sacramento HCP released in June of 2017, Elk Grove putting out the general plan EIR NLP, which had some pertinent information. Sacramento County Water Agency provided, in response to a municipal service review, some new information related to water supply. So LAFCO staff and council felt it would be prudent to issue a partially recirculated environmental impact report involving these sections that you see on this slide to address that new information that came in. In summary, we don't have a panoply of new significant impacts in this recirculated EIR, as you'll notice when you look through it. The impact related to the HCP is still less than significant, but now we have a lot more data that supports that finding. There was a change to buffer distances related to Swainson's Hawk mitigation so that local on-the-ground conditions can be factored in. CDFW said they wanted to be coordinated with rather than consulted, so we made that change in various mitigation measures. Tricolored blackbird was previously handled as a part of another impact. Now it's on its own. And we've got a requirement in mitigation that if there are going to be improvements that are in SMUD's transmission line easements, that they're required to review such improvements. That's the long and short of it, big picture, overall summary of changes. There's one more change that has come up since the recirculated EIR was put out in relation also to CDFW. Now the slides are just advancing to the very end on their own. Sorry about that. So one change related to California Department of Fish and Wildlife. There was a paragraph on page 51 of the biological chapter that, if you didn't read it really carefully, it seemed to cede some authority directly to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife regarding mitigation and conflicts with the HCP. That's not what we meant to say. In the opinion of LAFCO staff and council and myself, the subject paragraph, which is paragraph 3 on page 51, can be deleted entirely without affecting the veracity of the environmental document for disclosing and mitigating environmental effects. The next steps are receive your input, comments if you have, additional public input from tonight if people want to offer verbal input, and then anything in writing by Monday to Dawn using the contact information that is displayed on this slide. After we receive any comments on the public review recirculated draft, will create a final draft that includes responses to comments on anything that's new in the recirculated draft and anything from the original draft where people had comments. Prepare a final EIR, and then it'll be available for your consideration for certification at a later hearing. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or simply get out of the way, depending on your direction.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners or comments? Okay, well, we thank you very much for the presentation.
I just wanted to add one thing, just for the record, that the deletion of that paragraph comes at the request of both the SSHCP and City of Elk Grove staff. We consulted with them as well, since it had to do with their coordination with CDFW, and it was confusing and a superfluous paragraph. So they all concurred that it should come out.
Okay, I do have a couple of speaker cards regarding, Jude, you had written number 2. Did you mean number 7 as far as item?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Jude Lamar. I'm here
Jude
for
Lamar,
Habitat
okay.
2020, president of Friends of the Swainson's Hawk. And Jim and I are both here to speak to this item on behalf of 9 environmental groups. We had a discussion last night, and we had briefly reviewed the recirculated EIR to see how it responded to our earlier comments. Those were submitted by ECOS and also by Friends of the Swainson's Hawk. So we're kind of in tandem here, and we got the short straw. And we're not going to take up a lot of time on the EIR, but there's a few key elements of this that we wanted to take advantage of the hearing to speak to you about. First of all, I think you should realize that you're being asked to approve this application, which would change 24 years of policy to protect this area, its agricultural resource, and its wildlife resource. And that's a big charge for you, and I think it's a precedent-setting charge. So we're extremely concerned about how this decision is going to go, and how this EIR, whether it presents you with a fair and accurate portrayal of the impacts. The draft did not. We made numerous comments about that, how to fix it. Some things have been fixed. And we do know that, and we do agree that the project would have significant and unavoidable impacts on Swainson's hawk population and the agricultural resource of the county. But we continue to believe that the EIR has been prepared in such a way that it underestimates the impacts, and it doesn't give you a clear and true picture of your role in assessing this application. So, have you got a time limit?
You're doing fine.
Okay. So, one of the things that we noticed was that there are a lot of claims in the EIR about consistency between this application and county policies, LAFCO policies, the SHCP, the South Sacramento HCP, which we consider to be inaccurate. And so we'll be submitting written comments on December 11th and hopefully talking more to staff about that. But just to be clear, the analysis of the South Sac HCP in this EIR is just wrong. And it's clear that the people who are providing that for you don't understand how the South Sac HCP works. Just to remind you, 24 years ago, the county set out to do a habitat conservation plan. And now we're at the point where it's in a form to be adopted. And meanwhile, Elk Grove just dropped out of the process. And what they're giving to you in this application is an entirely different mitigation program. So you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to be wanting to talk to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and find out exactly what they did say on this application, because what we want at minimum is any mitigation land to be approved by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and that's definitely not in your document. The crane habitat in this EIR is way overestimated. This despite the fact that Save Our Sandhill Cranes provided a very detailed input about how you assess crane habitat. So at the end of the game, then, the feasibility and the appropriateness of the mitigation recommended in the EIR is going to be lacking because it doesn't take into consideration how limited the choices are for mitigation land and how much competition there is for that land. And we will dialogue with staff about that. On the water side, there's very vague assurances here that there's no problem, nothing to look at, and no real, nothing really new to add. The positive view is very exaggerated. and it's really not justified by any expertise. So we continue to ask, where does the water come from?
Excuse me, I just want to tell you about 30 seconds left.
Okay. So while we agree that the EIR does disclose that there are significant and important and unavoidable impacts that you should think about very hard, we think it is also quite flawed, and we want to keep working on it. We want to keep giving input. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Okay, we also have a Jim, Packle? Okay, I'm not sure if I pronounced it right. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Jim Paschal, also appearing on behalf of Friends of Swenson Hawk. Jude is kindly passing out to you a Google map 2016 of at least a part of the Elk Grove area. The boundary of Elk Grove is designated in the by the red line, and if you look within that boundary, you will see within the city of Elk Grove a whole lot of empty fields. These empty fields have been zoned for development. In some cases, there are projects already approved. They just haven't happened. Actually, Elk Grove was last here, 3 years ago, something like that. We drove around there. Not a lot has changed. There are still 2,000 to 3,000 acres of open land within the city of Elk Grove designated for new development that has not developed. Even the EIR says that there is enough land within the city to accommodate new development over the next 10 to 15 years. This SOI is not needed, and we just don't need to look at Elk Grove. You're a regional agency. You need to consider what else is happening in the region in terms of development. Immediately northwest of Elk Grove is Delta Shores. That's about roughly 1,000 acres or so of vacant land within the city of Sacramento that is currently being developed, but a whole lot of it still remains undeveloped. You look to the northeast, and immediately at the northeast boundary of the city of Elk Grove is the county's Florin Vineyard Community Plan Area. Again, thousands of acres designated for new development, planned for new development. It hasn't happened yet. Looking at it from a regional perspective, there is a whole lot of build-out that needs to take place in South County and Elk Grove before you should consider expanding Elk Grove's SOI. Your job is to assure orderly development, prevent leapfrog development. There's been enough leapfrog development in the county already. We don't need that. Let's fill in what is already designated for new development before we start considering a new SOI in this part of the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for any of the speakers or comments? Okay. Thank you both for your comments. We appreciate that very much. Are there any other cards? I gather that's not.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, that pretty much concludes our the public hearing items. Executive officer, any questions or comments for the council or executive officer?
I just wanted to make a quick announcement to remind the public that the selection procedure, the nomination selection procedure for the special districts, both the special district seat and the alternate seat, is open until next Friday, a week from Friday, September 15th. So it has to, and the nomination has to come from the board of the district. So just to let folks know it's out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Ashby.
Sure, thank you.
just turn off. I just wanted to, on that front, say thank you to you, Mr. Lockhart, for coming to talk to me about the statewide position, and I also wanted to thank my colleagues on this board for giving me an opportunity to look into it. It does look like a nice opportunity. However, I feel right now we are very well represented. Ms. Jones is the incoming president of that board and will be next year, so perhaps we would want to look at having somebody on our commission step in when she's done in that role. It might be a good idea, but right now I think we're well represented, so thank you again for the opportunity and for filling me in, and to all of you for giving me an opportunity to take a look at it.
Thank you. I hope you won't give up, but maybe later on. Any other comments, or, okay. With that, I guess, since there are no more business, we'll adjourn now, and thank you all very much.